Welcome to our second theory video for Constellation. I am Dan, that's Julia, that's BagFace, and that's Vex down there. It's our first video for Constellation, so Vex, start with you. How are you enjoying the show so far?
Loving it. Compared to I think with the exception of maybe Severance, which I mean people debate on, usually all the Apple stuff I've seen has that dip in the middle. So I was I'm pleasantly surprised so far that with every episode, it just gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
I like that this also has a very good focus. It's not throwing us in a bunch of different directions and, giving us a bunch of red herrings. Acting is great. I like where the characters are going and how they're growing and developing as well. I really have no complaints about this
Nice.
show whatsoever. I hope it keeps on the trajectory that it's on and it doesn't just slump at the end. That's all.
I
Look
feel
at
like that's a
Jules.
first. I am so shocked right now. Is this real? Am I in an alternate timeline?
It's you know what? I guess because we did Night Country right before this, it's such a
That's also true, but that's
We
fair.
have what, 3 episodes left, right? 3?
Yep.
yes.
Ugh, I
So
want it to be longer.
what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk about some theories. We're going to try to make some sense of the Bud/Henry situation. That seems to be the biggest question in the viewers' minds in the comment section. So let's start off with that. And I want to hear everybody's thoughts on what they think. So from Jimmy Olsen Blues, can you explain more the Bud-Henry dynamic? Did they switch places because the daughter hates him? I don't think that's necessarily true, but the Bud-Henry dynamic, BagFace, I know you have a lot to say about that. Vex, just go nuts. What are you guys' thoughts on the Bud-Henry thing?
My guess is Bud and Henry are aware of each other's existence and they have made contact before. This is something that they're used to, and they're both taking these pills in both realities so that they can't mess with each other. And something happened where Bud threw his pills away.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has much to do with the daughter or not, but I think it's the catalyst is probably just throwing the pills away and one of them breaking the truce, I guess you could call it, and messing with the other one. That would
Well,
be my theory.
Didn't he call the daughter at one point? I'll put the clip in if he did, and he said, this is your sort of father."
Henrietta Caldera, leave your message.
Hey, honey, it's your kind of father.
So are they in the same reality, or is it 2 different realities with Bud and Henry? Can they interact in person?
I think they might be switching timelines because he had to have done that if he made Henry pee himself, right?
Well, I made you piss your pants.
That I have no idea how he did that. Yeah.
Because his whole demeanor changed. It wasn't just he made him do that.
He took over. He took over.
So
for a
I'm
little
pretty
bit.
sure
Yeah.
I'm thinking that those pills are more so not necessarily to keep them from interacting with each other, but from swapping timelines somehow.
It's got to have something to do with why he wants to do this experiment and prove it to everybody, and why he knows he's the only one who can see all these things happening. Is because, somewhere along the line, he probably figured out what the universe actually is and then realized he could switch possible timelines in and out. If that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
you gotta figure if this has something to do with them being in space, he's been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah.
So he's probably gotten very good at navigating it.
Yeah, since that Apollo mission. So
Right.
a really long time. Yeah.
That's kind of the idea that I have is whatever happened on Apollo, because he was the only one that made it back allegedly, right?
Right.
So he has probably seen what is actually out there, and he's in some way been able to access some sort of, I guess, portal to another dimension or something like that. And the entire Caltech purpose is to try and harness that again. I think the daughter it's not necessarily she has an influence on it. I think it's just more to ground us that because even Joanna, right? She says the Bud or the Henry that I know is a drunk and he's just an absolute mess. But in her universe, it's clearly a guy that still has his shit together and everything, right? So I think it's just more to show how wrong things could have gone, since he's really the only character where we're getting a glimpse of that. That's all. So yeah, I think he definitely like BagFace said, he saw something, he figured out something, and he's been trying to take advantage of it more than maybe swap back or visit that alternate reality. I think NASA and like the ESA and all of them are all in on it though, because they are giving specific people a specific type of pill on top of that as well. And I think that leans into like a bit of those conspiracy theories. You know how there's those like there's alleged tales of like astronauts that have gone out into space and then like they've seen something maybe weird around just like the atmosphere of the Earth, or things are not as they were shown in like pictures and textbooks and all that stuff, or they've claimed to have seen things that are like completely contrary to like what we've known like our entire lives or what we're told by all these big government facilities. So I imagine, because the Russian chick, right? I don't know if you guys noticed, but the dead cosmonaut looks exactly like the Russian chick, right? So that's why I have a feeling that they're all in on this, and there's just specific parties that know more than other. And in the last episode, we had those people up in like Denmark, the Marine Conservatory, that just happened to get in on this. Like they just happened to be these little outliers that were able to pick up on this kind of like grand conspiracy that's going on as well.
My brother heard you, imperfectly of course, talking about this dead body when you were on the ISS.
That's like as far as my theories go.
The Russian lady, Irene, and then there's Irena. So that is what's really confusing me. And BagFace believes that they're sisters and one of them died, and maybe one of them is that dead cosmonaut.
That's what I've been thinking.
Yeah.
Because
like
they look exactly like each other. Or like close enough at least. I mean, I don't know how much you can tell with a skeleton, but
yeah, were there any other hints that Irene or Irena had a sister though?
She says it in the first episode, I think.
Yeah.
Or someone mentions like something about her sister, and she like,
it's like, how's your sister? It's when she's talking to Henry.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
It would kind of make sense to me if, like, she had kind of the same thing with Henry and Bud, like Irene and Irina have the same kind of knowledge and capability. So
this one is from my girl Kizenbell. She said, I had thought that Bud and Henry were the same person, just different realities / timelines. And the same thing with Irene and Irina. I know that earlier episodes they used sister and brother, but I don't think it is a literal sister and brother. But that's just what they call their other realities. Like in this episode, one of the Henry / Buds leaves a message for his daughter and says, this is your sort of father. So I took it as him contacting his daughter from a different timeline. Irena saying her sister was dead is either because her other reality is literally dead, or because both have been taking the meds so they are not coming into contact with one another anymore. Henry / Bud says that he hasn't heard from his brother in a long time, probably because one always ends up not taking the meds and they come in contact from time to time. Like what is happening in the last episode.
All right. So yeah, it's confirmed that he says this is your sort of father. That's funny that just came up. All right. So what do you guys think about that? What do you think about that? You think she's on to something there?
I think she's onto something. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems pretty on point to me.
Yeah. The only thing that holds me up, remember the scene? I'm trying to remember it clearly. There's like the scene where Bud is doing the interview, or Henry's doing the interview on like the news channel, and they call him the opposite name of who he is.
And he gets pissed. Yeah.
Henry Caldera, many thanks.
It's Bud. Bud Caldera, for Christ's sakes. Ugh. Fuck.
Yeah, but I think his name in that timeline is still Henry, but he goes by Bud.
Oh.
Like I think he just doesn't like when people call him Henry.
I would imagine maybe there's a bad association too, because like there was a conversation I think in the 4th episode where the guy on the boat was like questioning, like, oh, we don't really know what happened up there. Only you came back. Like we have no confirmation on your story kind of deal. So it just might be like he wants to, because also his name was in the papers, right? We see all the news clippings.
Right.
So I imagine he just wants to distance himself to just try and live some sort of normal life, or at least deal with this quietly out of the public eye.
That makes the most sense. That's a very good theory.
All right. And then Irena saying her sister was dead. Irena's the one that's also trying to put silence on all this. She was the one that said that those tapes were conspiracy tapes and not to believe it and all that. So if she's so highly involved, why is she also the one that's trying to silence everything? And why did Henry call her after Cal went missing to say, hey, you need to come fix this?
Irena, I need your help. I'm sorry. You need to come and pick up the pieces.
Why is she such an important figure? Anything on that? Something just hit you?
Yeah, what just connected?
I feel like maybe Cal is a way for them to separate themselves. Like maybe Cal, the experiment itself is like Henry trying to figure out a way to like permanently cut Bud or brother or himself off. You know what I mean? And that's why Irene or Irena, I don't know which one's which, but I think Irene would be okay with it because she wants to cut herself off from the reality where she died, because that'd be spooky.
Like, what happens if you just slip into that timeline? People are like, holy shit, a ghost.
They are sort of slipping into that timeline though, because we saw it in the first episode and in the last episode now.
Yeah.
So it looks like wherever the Cal is present, that's where like this ability to kind of cross into timelines happens.
I know they mentioned that like when you're around the Cal, it like does make it like stronger. It makes like the connection stronger.
I would assume that Irena is the one that was talking to Ilya in the last episode. And I don't know where Irene is at all.
Have we seen both of them on screen, like Irene and Irina?
I don't think
just
so.
Irene.
No, because I think that's why they referenced her being dead. But
so
I do
Irena's
like
the dead one, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Okay.
I
No,
think.
Irena is the one that Henry called to come fix the situation.
Oh.
So Irene is the dead one.
It would be Irene, yeah.
I thought we've seen Irene.
That's
Have
what
we
I
not?
thought too. I thought she was the
Yeah.
one that we see commanding
I'm
everyone in
so
the first
confused.
episode.
Yeah,
So then who's the dead cosmonaut? Is that a third reality maybe that was breached there?
Well, third one.
People
No,
have
don't
brought
do that
up
to me, Vex.
people have brought up that there are 3 realities. Yeah. That is something. Yeah.
My brain's gonna be mush by the end of the show.
That is something
Actually,
that's something that's out there. So that could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that would explain like 3 different like scenarios that happen when Joanna is outside of the ship trying to fix stuff.
Yeah.
Because like
that's
there's
true.
one version where it was like a solar wave or something, right? I think they said. And then there's another version where she said that she sees the cosmonaut. And then the third version is where the cosmonaut still happens, but it's only Joanna that sees it because she might be in between 2 realities when she sees it. Because Ilya doesn't spot it at all, even though it's literally just drifting a few hundred feet away. So it's
right.
and then with Joanna switching as well, maybe that explains a third reality coming into play, explains how they're able to seamlessly kind of work between, like Bud and Henry can contact each other. It's like there's an in-between sort of that we can count as a third reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that like that would make sense if they're just kind of like swooshing in and out of each other, you know?
Yeah.
There's gonna be a point where they converge, and that would technically be a third reality where it's kind of a combination of 2.
The pills then in that situation is because there are only specific people that seem to have been exposed to this kind of thing. Is the pills like lithium just dopes you up basically. It makes you numb emotionally and mentally to everything. So by pumping these specific people full of lithium, they're kind of breaking that connection where they can connect with like their alternate selves or the other reality, or start to kind of harness that ability of theirs, sort of deal.
What do you guys think below on the third reality thing? I think it's highly possible that could be the case. I know for a fact it's Irena, the one that was called to come fix the situation. I know for sure because they show a screenshot later, and I'll put it up again, where Joe is reading into it, and it says Irina Lashenko, but it says she's the one that is claiming these ghost tapes are conspiracies.
Yeah.
So it's her, it's Irena that's saying all of that. So if we met Irene earlier in the series, then definitely could be 3 realities. I think
that's true. Okay. I
possible.
gotta rewatch, I think.
Yeah, that could also just be because I have shit memory, so I don't.
Because there's so many little details that I didn't pick up at all. Because like even just like the simple thing of like, oh, the vulva was red in the opening, but it was blue when she came back. I was like,
and like
I didn't even notice that at all.
They've done a really good job of that too.
Yeah, of like the really subtle
like
differences.
it starts to make me question things. I'm like, wait a second, did I remember that right?
The car thing was such a cool thing for me because that was the first point where it kind of confirmed that she was not in her right reality. Because it's like cars just don't change colors like that. So it was such a subtle thing, but to me it was like a really cool moment to like, oh, this is what they're doing. I really enjoyed
and then
that.
they can just pass it off as like the effects of being in space for that long because you have you lose your memory and this and that. You get confused.
Space brain.
Basically, they're just using space brain as a cover for like why these people are like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So this last one is from Daniel Bond 6499. He says, when Henry woke up in his apartment, he was mumbling, Henry, Henry. This is because Bud was trying to wake up Henry. Then Henry tells him to shut up. Bud and Henry are different people, but from different realities. The more Bud stops taking lithium, the more interaction Bud and Henry have. Enough is enough. I bet that if either Henry or Bud were to take a picture of the message on the mirror, it would not show up in the pic. Joe is given lithium from the start because of Irene. The moment Joe said she saw a dead cosmonaut, Irene panicked. The dead cosmonaut is Joe's reality's Irene. Henry and Irene had a conversation on the phone. Have you seen your brother? Have you seen your sister? I think we both know she's passed away. Also, Irene has lymphoma, which would be explained by quantum entanglement with her alternate dead self exposed to radiation in space. 1000% agree with all of that. I love that.
I
Yeah,
love
I
this
like
one.
that too.
I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out like how to connect like Irene and the cosmonaut, which I'm sure didn't help when I wasn't sure who was who, but like that would make sense though.
But then it
Yeah.
brings up
Especially
the
with, like-
question, like, who is Irena then? Does
Yeah.
that mean there's definitely a third reality then?
I know. Well, I think she was reading an article about the dead cosmonaut, which was Irena.
No, it was Irena saying that the tapes were faked.
No?
That's what it said in the
Fuck.
quote.
Oh, you're right.
So there's definitely an Irena
Are you
out
sure?
there.
But are you sure you're like 100% sure?
100% sure, because I
Yeah.
put it in the last video, and I'm gonna put it in this one too.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
quote. It's a quote from Irena saying that the ghost tapes are
Hmm.
fake. So like,
And
Interesting.
yeah, it would have been way after she would have died in the timeline where she was in Cosmo.
Yeah.
yeah. So
But I
like,
also I really love the reasoning behind her lymphoma being like the quantum entanglement. I think that's a really cool idea there.
That could also lend credence to her like really wanting the cowl to sever off.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. for
if
sure.
it's giving her cancer.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
What does everyone think of the part where she said the moment Joe saw a dead body, Irene panicked because the dead body in Joe's reality is Irene? I love that one.
I agree
think-
with that 100%.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
absolutely
too.
agree with that.
That was like post cowl turning on though, right? So it could have been like Joe slipping into another reality. So
could have
like
been.
maybe I because I feel like Irene is alive in Joe's time, like original timeline.
Yeah.
Is she?
Have they interacted? I feel like they have.
I don't think they did in the original. So like the timeline, I mean, there's the timeline that Joe is in right now. Yes, they're
Right.
interacting, but the timeline before, they only interacted over the comms because the ESA they weren't able to get a hold of them or something like that. So they transferred them over to the whatever installation was in Russia or whatever. And then that's the interaction that they have. But it sounds like they didn't, if I remember correctly, again, I need to rewatch, I think. But they don't really know each other. Like they're not familiar with each other at all.
So they're the theories we got. Vex, I know you have some other theories that you'd like to share. So what are you
Yes.
lingering on?
I think so. We discussed one of the theories basically, which is the alternate reality. I think we're seeing like what is actually going on just through the lens of Joanna, right? That's it. But maybe Irena, every time they showed the newspaper clippings of all the other astronauts that saw crazy shit, they always show the one of like the 6 astronauts that allegedly saw angels out there when they were on the docks. There we go. When they were at the Marine Observatory in the last episode, it was like they sent 3 astronauts up. They claimed they saw angels. Then they sent 3 more, and all 6 of them saw the same thing.
Yep.
In the first episode, remember when Joanna gets to the cabin, like the camera intentionally pans up to this portrait that's like over the mantle, right? And it's like 2 little like pipers almost like holding an angel. And then when she goes into the snow and comes back, now suddenly it's like a cheeky devil that's in between the 2 pipers, right?
Yes.
So is it possible that there has been like maybe almost a breach between heaven and hell in some way? But like,
Ooh.
you know how they say like it like heaven or hell can be on earth, right? There's like sayings that kind of allude to that. So maybe Irena, because we can't really discern what's going on, and there's clearly a version of her that's dead. She must be representative of kind of like these 2 alternatives. I don't know, maybe the dead cosmonaut is a bad one or a good one that died. One of them is neutral, maybe.
Why do I feel like she said something to Henry about that when they were talking about her having lymphoma? Like about there being like heaven and hell.
I'm worried there won't be any heaven, or there won't be any hell.
But it would also kind of explain why she randomly comes on to Henry in the hotel room, because I thought it was very odd that they just suddenly were having kind of a sexual interaction when there was no inkling that there was anything romantic between them before. But it's like, a devil seduces, right? Kind of deal.
Right.
And Henry seems to have a pretty solid head on his shoulder in that timeline. So I'm wondering if we're getting maybe a little bit of that in there.
I have one final question for the group. Now, last episode ended with the other Alice who can speak Swedish and that calls Joanna Mama, calling out for Mama. And she seems to be in the same location as where the cabin is. It was a snowy atmosphere, and it seems like she's close by. What do you think's going to happen with that? We saw in the trailer that she's going to interact with Joe. Do we get that next episode? How's that going to work with two Alices going back and forth? That's going to blow my mind. What do you
I
guys
feel
think
like
about that?
Alice is probably like an innocent in all of this. Like like there's something else at force. Like maybe it is because like Joanna's got the Caltech with her and all that stuff, or maybe because she's been freshly exposed to it. But it's Alice is just unintentionally experiencing all of this. But I also imagine because like again, first episode, we saw two very different versions of Alice. One that is very clearly a little bit more like forward and outgoing, like Mama, like I'm cold, like and all that. And then the other one that just hides in cupboards. I'm wondering if that also kind of plays into the heaven hell idea, because like there's constantly moments where Joanna's like, you don't act like this. Of course you speak Swedish, kind of deal. It's like she's lost any connection that she would have had to her daughter in almost either reality. It sounds like.
Yeah,
that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, no, I like that. I feel like my brain's just really going to like the heaven, hell, light, dark kind of.
I feel like kind of playing off what you were just saying. It's one of those shows where everything will come together really, really well at the end, and I'll need to go back and watch to understand how well it all actually comes together. Because I feel like there's a lot of groundwork being laid to a place that I don't know, but it's all going in the same direction.
That's really the only thing we are sure of. Like it's all going in one direction at least.
Yeah.
But like how?
Yeah.
You know what I just thought about? So they focused a lot when Joe was up there about like the time that she was in the dark, which would be when she's on the dark side of the moon, correct?
The dark side of Earth.
talking-
Yeah. Because she's going
whatever.
around Earth. Yeah.
That's what I meant. So she's going on the dark side of Earth. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with the way their like personalities are split or their timelines are split. Because we're looking at that like light dark kind of deal. Because she talks a lot about how she's like scared of the dark.
That's true. Yeah. The next episode is called Paul is Dead, though. So I think something with Paul is going to happen.
Well, yeah, I would say so.
I'm also just thinking, like, again, back to the heaven hell thing. Like, Paul was an apostle.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So, and it's interesting that consistently, despite like all the other kind of weird astronauts we've heard of or other passed away astronauts, there's always a drawback to Paul's. Like, was it your mother's a bitch? There's that whole interaction between Alice and the daughter. Then there's Alice seeing the funeral and Paul's there instead of her mom. Like Paul's alive instead of her mom kind of deal. The hand always reaching out to Joe kind of deal. So yeah, I think we're gonna get a Paul-centric episode, but it's gonna take us in the right direction either way. Yeah.
I'm excited. I can't wait. That'll pretty much do it for this theory video. If you want to be involved in the next one, just comment your theories below and we'll highlight the ones that blow our minds. So what do you think's going on? Do you agree? Do you disagree? We're open to anything because this show could go in any direction, I think.
It could go anywhere.
Yeah, it could go anywhere. This show could go anywhere, but I'm excited for the ride because it's been so fun so far, and I can't wait for the final 3 episodes. So, all right, that'll do it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Later.
Bye, guys.
Where have you seen this? Have you heard me talk about the accident?
Joe?
How do you know? When did you see this?
I recently took a nap. Does my hair look like I recently took a nap?
It
They look fantastic.
Don't say that, Vex.
I just
We're
like
gonna have to
fuck with
convince him that it's fine.